Okay, so short time and so many things. I have prepared some stuff, and also hearing you, Hans, I got a lot of things here cooking. So I'll try to see what we can do. Okay, you said something very, we talk also about the character, but I want to start from something very interesting, which was the problem of teaching. And I'd like to, because often, you know, many sort of pedagogues are also directors, they also direct. Often we teach through directing, so through putting up a play. So I'd like to hear from several of you, what is your idea about what is the focus of training versus what is the focus of directing? And we can start with you, Hans, and then
maybe someone else now.
Okay. That's good. So yeah, Bill, since you're here next to me, you have no idea. That's great.
Say that. I have no idea. It's not working. Is it working?
Yeah.
There it is. I mean, in America, directors don't teach acting very much, and probably that's a good thing. Especially film directors or television directors, they don't have any time to teach anybody any acting. Just hit your mark and get the line out so we can get on to the next thing, you know. And so when people are involved in projects, the focus is on getting the project out, not helping an actor. And usually when I talk with directors about directing actors, I tell them, very importantly, stay out of their process. It's none of your business, and they'll work it out. That's
what is your focus when you teach?
Trying to make the actors better. Yes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look. You know, I leave myself alone because I understand that I have whatever knowledge I have. It's all in my unconscious, most of it anyway. And so I'll open myself to whatever the students are doing, and I try to make it better with whatever comes up for me. You know?
So if I say that the focus in training is to power the abilities of every single student, would that be correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that you try to help them in every way you can, unless you're some kind of vicious sadist. And those are around, floating around out there.
And these powering these qualities, it means to learn rules, or it means to do an experience which make your abilities to be stronger.
Yeah, I think I abhor rules. I think that any artist, the moment you hand him a rule, he's going to want to smash it immediately if he's any kind of an artist. They hate rules because rules are very constricting and immediately limit someone. I don't think you teach rules, not if you're any good. What you try to do is imbue in the students certain principles of creative work, and something that will help to free them and their imagination to a point where they're going to be able to collaborate with the writer's imagination, an important writer, good writers, you know. That's the goal.
So could we say that like an exercise is a sort of a frame, a starting point, a sort of trampoline for an experience which create a sort of powering or transformation in the qualities of the students?
Well, every exercise, you know, is for, exercises are for specific, concrete, technical things, you know.
So they're rules?
No, it's not a rule. I mean, there's a principle that you're not going to be very good if you don't listen. Listening is a very important key thing.
It's a quality.
In an actor. No, it's not a quality.
We do listen.
It's an ability.
It's an ability.
It's an ability. Very different thing.
So you power an ability that you already have in life.
No.
No?
Let's not bring life into this.
I mean, you do. I'm interested in this. No, because I mean.
No, it's two different things.
Yeah, but okay.
Life is not art. Stanislavsky learned that we tried to hire peasants to play real peasants. It didn't work out.
Yeah, but my point is, an actor is a person, right?
Yes.
So this person can listen.
No.
No, he doesn't listen.
Why? Life is full of people who don't listen.
Yeah, but potentially, they have this
It's got
potential.
nothing to do with it, but if you want to be a very good actor,
Yeah.
right, you have to have that skill. The exercises are to instill in the student the principles that will help them be better actors. And there are certain skills that an actor has to have.
But this principle must be organic. Certain. I mean, it's not like if I can understand this principle intellectually, okay, I have to listen. But how do I?
Well, it's a very different thing to say it's good to listen and training somebody to listen the way an actor has to listen. You know, with an actor's sensibility and sensitivity to hear, you know, we start off, the beginning of my work is, did you hear what the fellow said? And now did you hear what he really said? You heard what he really said? How do you really feel about that? And so we begin to open up the actor that way. But it starts with listening.
Yeah.
But there are skills, there are concrete abilities, right, that an actor has to have, and as they acquire these abilities, naturally they gain in confidence. I mean, and confidence has to be grounded on something, you know, something real, something concrete, you know, that you've learned a specific task. And really, when you're talking about technical things, technique, you're talking about developing a set of reflexive habits so that the actor not only listens, he can't help listening. You know, he doesn't think about it, he just can't do anything else. You know what I mean?
Can I
so
hear,
forth, and you could go through a whole list of skills.
Yeah. Can I hear Keller about this? About this problem of okay, what was my original question? Yeah, about what is the focus in training from your point of view?
Na, der Fokus ist schon, dass es, entschuldige, ich spreche nur Deutsch, ich spreche nicht mit
I'm sorry,
Englisch.
I only speak German.
Der Fokus ist schon, dass es bestimmte Gesetzmäßigkeiten in der Arbeit des Schauspielers gibt und der Fokus ist schon, ihn damit bekannt zu machen. Es gibt keine Methoden.
Also. I'm not a professional translator, so the focus is that you have certain laws
Bestimmte Gesetzmäßigkeiten in diesem Beruf.
Which are in this job.
Und mein Bedürfnis ist, den
And I feel the need
Schauspieler mit diesen Gesetzmäßigkeiten bekannt zu machen.
to make them, to meet the actor with these laws, with these, yeah, I would call them laws.
Well, I mean, just, yeah, some rules, some ways how you can learn to be an actor. How can you, become acquainted with these rules, with this, that help the actor to be a better actor.
So here we have already a little sort of conflict because he said principles and you say rules.
Well, I'm not, what is the difference?
Yes, it's semantic.
Yeah.
It's semantic. A rule is something that absolutely has to be followed. The rule is that you don't run a red light. That's against the law.
He says there are rules. Yes, there are rules.
Aber Dialektik ist natürlich das Regeln auf dazu da sind, dass sie gebrochen sind.
But of course, you have rules in order to break them.
But most artists are very, how do you say, belligerent about rules. I mean, they really hate them.
It's very interesting. Good.
I mean, if everybody followed the rules, we would never have the Ninth Symphony.
Yeah, we just have to try to stay a bit more on So we create, because it's very hard for her to translate their sort of digressions, you know. Okay, that's very interesting. So it's very clear. So before we go there, and then you can also clarify something about rules, principles. What do you think about it? I'd like also to try to sort of. We talked about. You talked about abilities, right? You said abilities, skills.
Skills.
So if I am like a civilian, I'm a person, and I go to the theater or I go and I watch a movie, okay? And I get out and I say, oh, this was great. This was a great performance from this actor, or blah, blah, blah. Could we try to sort of, could we try to give words to these sort of skills or abilities that we can sort of recognize in a good actor, which could sort of make us say, this is good acting. Do you understand my question? I see that Carmen is really like, do you want to start?
It's a very simple thing. I don't need the mic. If you can hear me okay?
Yes.
And I don't want to get into it too much because there's more to hear from your question, but I would say presence, right? I mean, this is this thing that we don't know what it is. We say, he has presence or she has presence. And we all think that's achieved differently. And we all think that it requires something different from a space or from a director or from a text, etc. But it's presence. And I think it's something that you were talking about as this spiritual, you referred to the spiritual, Hans, in your description. And it's like that. It's something very difficult for us to identify through method and technique, but we all sort of know it when we see it. It's like a bell, ding, and something goes off, whether it's physically or intellectually. So I would say presence.
Presence.
Yeah.
So just that. So,
I'll leave it there for now.
okay. Leonard. We should start, and then I'll give you the word. Leonard. I'll keep the microphone. You just talk.
I certainly agree with that, but I also feel that it's the ability to have to create an empathetic response with the viewer, and when that happens, then that for me is successful. The actor is successful.
So empathy between the viewer and the actor for you is extremely important, but that's also aesthetical in a way.
No, it's also spiritual. I mean, it's something that the audience or the spectator can walk away from something and say, I've been moved. This can only be done by someone who is a good actor. Can only move you. They could, do this wonderful Cyrano de Bergerac stuff, but they can also just say the words. But if they're not moving you, then they're not being a good actor.
Michael, do you agree about this?
Na, ich glaube, ich habe Schwierigkeiten mit dem Begriff Präsenz.
I have problems with the word presence.
Weil so ein bisschen wolkig ist.
Because it's just a bit cloudy.
Yeah, so cloudy. I agree.
Letzten Endes heißt der Begriff Präsenz für uns ja nur als Zuschauer, dass wir den einen Schauspieler lieber sehen als den anderen.
For us as an audience member, it actually just means I prefer seeing this actor compared to this one.
Und das wiederum ist dialektisch auch kompliziert, weil wir alle mit unseren eigenen Geschichten ins Theater gehen und jeder einen anderen Präsenter findet.
And that of course is complicated in a dialectic sense because we all are different and looking for different things when we are in the theater.
Kommen alle mit unserer eigenen Biografie und
We all come
schauen.
with our own biography.
Und deswegen sage ich eher immer bei so Sachen wie Präsenz, das ist dasselbe wie Talent.
And that's why I'm saying with the terminology like presence, it's also the same with talent.
Dass man in der Lage sein muss,
That you have to be able to
Gedanken und Gefühle da oben sichtbar zu machen.
To visualize thoughts and feelings up there.
Dass du in jeder Sekunde deines Bühnendaseins es schaffst, einen Ausdruck zu finden für das, was du denkst und fühlst.
So in every second of your stage being, you have to find an expression for that.
What do you think and feel?
What do you think and feel? Yes.
Bill, you said so you're talking about body languages.
No, I'm just talking to myself.
If we were in Russia, you would be called for. Do you have something to say?
Well, I don't know. Whenever I go to the theater and film, I want to come away with having experienced something, and I want the actors to be experiencing something, and something that's authentic and lands in my sense of truth. I believe in it, I believe it, you know. Even though it may be a very fantastical world that they're creating, I want to believe in that world. And I want something that's going to enhance my own humanity. And if it doesn't do that, then I'm not very interested in it.
Okay. Yes, Hans?
Yeah, for me, I think it's very depends on very much what am I looking for? What kind of experience am I looking for? To put on my big actors' experiences the last years, it is two. It is Leonardo DiCaprio in Departed. He was playing with all the best actors I know, and he was 100 times better. And that was very interesting to see. Why? Why was that? I don't understand why. I think it was a very highly skilled work on a very high level, because everyone there was good, but he was so much better. It was Jack Nicholson, it was
Damon.
Yeah, and he was there, and he was so much more interesting. That is very interesting. Why is that? And of course, then I'm looking for something very special, because I'm looking for something in that film. And it was very, very obvious for me that he was doing such a much more interesting acting work in that concept of that film than all the other ones.
Can I provoke you a second?
Yeah?
Was it the acting work
Yeah.
which was better, or was it your projections of that work, your sensibility that was more
Maybe.
moved by those events?
Well, and 2 days later I saw the Mysterie på Bounty. Have you seen that film? It's a very old film. It's a Mysterie på Bounty.
Oh, the music. Oh, yeah, of course, with Marlon Brando. I just didn't know the Norwegian title.
It's a sort of adventurous film with good actors, with a sort of Hollywood style something, but then Marlon Brando is there, and you know it's getting art suddenly. Everything else is just normal Hollywood, and then he's in the middle and doing something which is very special, different. And what is that? I don't know, but he's playing in the same concept. I understand what I'm looking for. I can see this film's concept, of the language of the film, and I can then compare them. And one of them are doing something, and that is not only presence, it's something else too. It has to do with his understanding of his work as an actor. He's not only his personality, his skills too. He's something else, which is not only his presence, it's something else.
Okay, there is a lot of, but we hear Ed, Carmen Lara, and Leonard about this, and then we move on. Yeah.
And it's only just to say that by introducing...
I said Ed. We should start with Ed. Sorry.
Ed, oh, you said Ed.
Ed.
Pardon.
Carmen and
I didn't hear.
What's my question?
The question was about what's the focus and what are the abilities a good actor should have, the abilities
Well,
which you...
For me and the work we do at the Actor Studio, one of the primary purposes is personalization. Making whatever role you're playing personal, and then adding onto that physical pertinences that go beyond that. And it always works. It always works, especially in film.
But personal is not also physical, so what does it mean?
Both. Both.
Can you clarify what does it mean, personalization?
Personalization means when you read a script, you try to find things that are personal to you, that have an association with the material, right? There's another term that we use, substitution. I use an example that I just read recently, has nothing to do with an actor. It's about a prize fighter. I can't remember his name. I think he was a lightweight American prize fighter, a vicious fighter. And they asked him, where do you get this anger? Where do you get this force when you're in the ring? You beat the hell out of these people. How do you do that? He said, when I was a kid, I saw somebody kill my mother. Every time I face an opponent, my imagination goes, this is the guy that killed my mother. A connection is made. Who knows how that worked for him? Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does work. But for each actor, you've got to find something in yourself that has a direct association with the role you're playing. And that you can add, look, I've studied with Strasberg and I've studied with people like Richard Shetner. I don't know if you remember him, a highly experimental director. You know what his process is? I don't give a damn what you're feeling. That's your business. But when you walk on this stage and you lift this coffee cup, you lift it up this way and you drink it this way. You move across the floor, you move this way, this foot, that foot, that foot, this movement, this foot. Those are all physical things. Inside, you can experience whatever you want to. I thought that was an interesting experiment because you can use personalization and add appurtenances, our physical life. And it works.
Ed?
That's my focus.
Can I give you an example? Can I provoke you?
I'm sorry?
Can I provoke you?
Be my guest.
What did I feel?
Bravos, well done. What did you say?
What did I feel? What was my feeling?
I have no idea.
So, when you watch a play where people do a lot of things, how do you know about their feelings?
You sense it. Empathically, you sense it. If he's really experiencing something.
But I was experiencing this. Yes, I was. It's my life. You can't say I'm not experiencing this. It's happening to me now, here. I'm going to remember this for the rest of my life.
Yes, you're using yourself right now, and I don't know what you're feeling. Yeah. But when an actor is playing a role, there's an inner life that's very evident. It's different from what you were doing. You were feeling nothing. You just got up and you picked up and you sat down. Who knows what you were feeling? There's nothing specific that you were working on, personalizing, that had a dramatic event behind it. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, I will come back to this afterwards when I will say another provocation. So I want to hear Carmen and then Leonard.
Yeah, it's only just to say that I feel like by introducing a word like presence, it introduces the space where we all challenge each other. Because that's one of the things that our techniques or lack of techniques or approaches to space disagree on. And so for me, I just want to start by saying I think that when we introduce then the word talent, we also have an equal struggle or debate. And for me, they're very different things. And it's difficult to separate them because in sort of the everyday experience of, let's say, film, like you raised the question, we often talk about, oh, he had presence, he had talent. And we haven't separated them sort of theoretically. But I think it's very important in contemporary work because the presence that we might train our students to seek or find or ask questions about may not be theirs. They don't own it. It's borrowed. It comes from a space, it comes from a relationship, it comes from a situation, it comes from an object, right? That's part of our process, is asking that question. It's not something necessarily we just sort of say a spell for, it comes down to us and that we own. Yeah.
Yeah, Leonard.
I was only responding to what Hans was saying about Marlon Brando and Leonardo DiCaprio, and that perhaps it was that they were led by their characters. Just to come back to what you were speaking of earlier, that maybe that was the inspiration. That,
excuse me, can you talk
that the performances that he was referring to of Brando and DiCaprio were inspired or led by their involvement with character. Just to make a reference back to what he was talking about during the interview, that maybe that was the what made it so wonderful.
Maybe, of course, yes, it could be the answer. But I have the feeling that that they are just if you see the film Departed, you see highly skilled, very talented actors side by side. And they're all playing a quite complicated psychological work with different layers. And it's so obvious that he is working on so many more levels than the other ones, for me, that I suppose that this is not only the character, that is part of his just sort of just very highly developed actor skills or understanding of somehow work of the work, which is not only, of course, this connection thing and all this is part of it, but it's a creation of this person, which is so extremely deep with so many layers, which is the different persons around him has the same possibilities in their characters, as far as I can understand. I just see a different level of work. That's my
with
opinion.
Brando.
With Brando and with DiCaprio. Because besides him, he is also very talented, very open-minded, very listening people, very present people. All of them are sort of very talented persons. So there is a difference there on skills, on work, as far as I can understand. Not only the basics.
Not only
the basics.
Good. Okay. Yes.
And not only the personality.
Yes. Harald.
I want to say something about, for me, the focus of the training, or what I try, there are two things. That's the one thing is to give, to teach a kind of craft. Can you say this? Like a craft to the like, with maybe concrete rules that you can break also, but to teach a craft that that the actor is knowing what he's doing there, that he can make decisions on his own. This craft will help him. And on the other hand, and this is very important for me too, is the question: how can I teach a kind of a responsibility that the actor or the student is starting to take a responsibility for what he's doing on stage. So to the question of presence, maybe. So if the student is, or the actor is really defending on stage what he wants, with his passion, with his power, what he knows and what he can work with his craft, he can make it much stronger if he has his craft, then he will be present. Just defending this. It's not a cloudy or whatever, it's not presence. He's defending with his passion, with his power, with his love, and this. And so this, for me, is a challenge in training, to do both things. And not just there are the rules and the actor says, oh, I did this rule and I followed it and so I'm a good actor now. No. So this, just to say, this for me is how to find the balance between these two.
Yeah. Okay. Can I... Okay, you see the time goes really fast and here I'm sitting with millions of things I'd like to ask, but I want to leave a couple of minutes to the questions. I just want to, since it's Hans, we're starting from Hans, yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to add. I hear about talent. Talent is a very mysterious thing, but I think most importantly, the bedrock of it is that the talented actor is someone who has a very vivid imagination and is able to believe in things that aren't real, that are just figments of that imagination, but which if the text says this is such and such and this is true, the actor, if the text says you're my son, right, then you become my son as much as my real son. You're my other son, and I don't question it.
I act upon it.
That's right, and I relate to you, in that way. So it's that ability to live in the imaginary world, which is very different from the real world.
Yeah, I have a huge line of questions about this because I'd also like to talk about the words, like believe, which is also a word we use in Norwegian, tro, omstendigheter. But I think there's no time today, we're going to take it tomorrow. I just want to close with something. and then I'll give like space to you guys, which is about there is a discussion there, which was going on the last years about the translation of Stanislavsky about the word zadacha, probably speak. Zadacha. So in the original translations of, I'm just reporting the fight. I'm not taking sides here. I want you to comment on this. But before Einstein asked you about the goal, right? Mål, as you say in Norwegian. Okay, so the will, what does the character want, and the goal, right? But there is when there was this translation by Benedetti, which translated a sort of new version of the book of Stanislavsky, and there was also this professor called Sharon Carnegie, and there was a bit was an expert on Russian language, and they argue about how to translate this word. Originally, the translation is of zadacha was object, which is very close to mål in Norwegian. But lately, they sort of moved, as you said, towards task, the word task, what's the character's task. And then there was sort of the conflict between also Benedetti and Carnegie, and she stepped out from the translation, because she says that zadacha is more close to the problem. So I'd like to ask you, what does it change also philosophically, and also when Einstein before he talked about what kind of idea of a human being we portray on stage, what does it change if we talk about the will which goes towards a goal, or the action that goes towards fixing a problem? Do you understand my question? If we talk about the problem of the character, or if we talk about the goal of the character?
There has been discussions about words after he wrote his horrible books 100 years ago.
I am the only one who can't speak without it.
Okay, there has been discussions about words after Stanislavsky wrote, and the translation came from his different books, all from the very beginning. And so the problem of Stanislavsky has been, or the Stanislavsky books, or the Stanislavsky system, or the Stanislavsky methods, has been a scholar's problem more than theatrical, practical person's problems. That's the problem with those books. It's not so important to talk about those words and what is the right word and what is the wrong word and whatever could that word mean. And
but if I tell you that for me as an actor it changes a hell of a lot, but if I have to go towards my goal.
But there is no right and wrong in it. I can tell you what I see or understand with this problem, but you can ask all the other ones and they will tell you something else, and all of them are right. So there is no right in Stanislavsky, there is no right translation.
But what do you think, apart from Stanislavsky? What do you think?
The main thing about the books is that they should not be reduced to a sort of handbook of how to become a good actor. He tried to write down sort of a spiritual experience which he had made as a teacher. It is more like that. He's more like a shaman than he is a realist or.
Yeah, but in the practice, let's forget about the book. That's what I'm not. I mean, books, okay, but in the practice, when you say you talk to a student, right, and you say we have to find the goal of the character.
Yeah, I tell him, what does it look like if you manage? What does it look like?
Okay.
If you manage to reach your goal, what does it look like? What do you see? What happens? He should have an understanding of what should happen. That's what I say.
The consequences of.
If I want to amuse you, I want you to laugh. If you laugh, well, I reach my goal. It's very easy. I understand it. I can see it. It's it's not intellectual, it's not something here. I understand it, I can see it. That's for me an answer to that question. But there's a lot of different answers. It has also to do how you explain it, on what way you explain it, how you put your lines, how you smile, whatever. All these things.
But that's
words, you know.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm trying to have you to say. You know, what's your way of relating with this concept? How do you explain them? How do you use them?
The only thing I would like to say that this problem I feel very strongly because I understand this craft. I know this tradition for some years now. But there is of course a problem with the craft because the craft has a lot of implications which is aesthetical, which makes you not able to do certain things in the theater, which now is quite interesting in the theater, in that tradition. So the craft has its problem, but it's still a craft, and you can do it on a very high level, on a middle level, on a low level, which is craft, and we should teach it. But we should understand at the same time that we're not going to close something. We are we're closing too much. It's very hard to teach a craft and not closing.
Okay. Great. Thank you. We can go back also to this because many of you use maybe goals or not use it, and that would be interesting to hear that. But it's very late, so I'm just gonna leave space to some of the questions. Is there anyone who wants to ask something? Yes, Janne.
Yeah, again. I think it's very nice of Hans to be so open about this method you are teaching it, and I wonder if the others, do you see problems in your methods? Or do you all think it's just what you have? Like Meissner, do you see problems within your method in the same way and try to develop or move forward, or have you found your way? It's for all, but I used an example. Yeah. But you can answer.
For all of you, but yeah.
Do I see problems in what I do?
Yeah.
Sure. You're always trying to any experience with a student, you're trying to get the student from here to some place that advances them, that makes them grow in some way. So you're always digging into every piece of knowledge that you have in order to help the student on their path. But overall, I would say that I'm very pleased with what I do. And for the most, as pleased as you can be in creative work, because to be creative means to be frustrated most of the time because it never comes out exactly the way you dreamed it. But yes, in America we have special problems, I think, because it becomes more and more difficult to make a living in the theater. So if you're training actors, you have to also train them for film and television, which are, you have to teach them to be able to improvise very well because there's no rehearsal. I mean, you got to show up on set, you have to have everything programmed into yourself, and then you got to be able to just walk into the shot and very confidently and openly and relaxed, allow it just to unfurl itself moment by moment by moment, unanticipated moment to unanticipated moment. And that's a skill, and a very important one in film. So there's no time at all. I mean, Stanislavsky wanted to take 10 years to put a play up. They still do that. Lev Toten told me, I went to see something, and he said, yes, we worked on that for 2 years, and then I decided to put it on the stage. And he said, to me it doesn't matter. I can take whatever time I want. If I would take 6 years to do something and then it turns out to be not so good, I don't put it on the stage. But I never have to worry about what I'm going to have there for the public. We have 50 plays or whatever they have in their repertoire. I just pick one. And we never have to worry about audience. We sell out every show. And so, but in America, 10 years, you're lucky sometimes you have 10 minutes. And even in the theater, now they're down to 2 weeks rehearsal, and then you're into previews with an audience there. And I tell you, sometimes the wonder is that the acting is as good as it is because the conditions are all met to crush good acting, to make good acting impossible. So when you see a wonderful performance, there's something miraculous, and the actor's talent is so strong that he overrides all of that.
I think that's, you know, the situation of the economic situation, the budgetary situation in America, and the art form of acting. Can you hear me? Or no? All right. It's absolutely accurate. There's one exception, and that's the work of Al Pacino, and I don't think there's any disagreement that he's a pretty good actor, right?
He was.
Laudatory performances, both in film and on the stage as well. Why? In his stage work, he's a star, right? Take as much time as he wants to do a play. So what does he do? He works on a play in the actor studio, scene after scene. Then he takes it to the Joe Papp's theater, or one of those theaters, or an off-Broadway theater. Or then he takes it to Boston without any reviews, no reviews, And then eventually, after one series of performances after another, after all this work, months and months of work, a lot of table work, by the way, he performs. And it's great, usually. Great work, So it just goes to show you that time spent on taking in that material, making it yours, and then adding on to it, eventually pays off. But it takes time. It takes a lot more time than we're allowed in, say, doing a Broadway show, or you're doing a movie. You have no time in movies. You got to come in with your own performance in the movie. You've got to do that. The director has no time, really. He really doesn't. And I give you example after example of film. I worked with David Fincher in the film Zodiac. And he had, let me give you an example of what his direction was like. He's a terrific director. We were doing a scene. I was an editor, and this fellow sitting next to me was a publisher in the movie Zodiac. So the publisher had a big scene, and he was having a lot of trouble with it. And David, who is a meticulous director, finally said, "Look, I don't believe what you did in that last take. So I want you to do something. What do you want me to do? I want you to think Mercury Theater." Mercury Theater was a theater organized by Orson Welles, a very famous theater in the 1930s, wasn't it? Right. So he said, "All right, let's shoot." So he turns to me and says, "What the hell does that mean, Mercury Theater? How am I going to act Mercury Theater?" I said, "I don't know. We'll come up with something." So he goes and he does the take, and he sits back down next to me after the thing. He says, "Ed, how was that take?" I said, "It was a mercurial performance." And behind me was David Fincher, and I hear laughter. I said, "Oh God, I'm going to get fired." Unfortunately, the laughter was real, and I was very thankful. But it just goes to show you that even a good director like David Fincher can be very, I can tell you other stories about that, about his work in that film, can be very cursory, and not helpful.
Can we hear yours about in relation to the question about if you find problems in the work you do that you keep developing, or
for example with substitution, that you use when you use substitution in your method, do you lose some listening to the actual person standing there? Because if you use substitution, this is another person than the one who's being right there.
It depends on who you're acting with, right? It depends on who you're acting with. If it's someone you like and there's a scene that you like this person, no problem, If it's not, then you've got to meet with this person. You've got to imagine this person is someone that you can identify with. Maybe way he combs his hair, maybe the way he does something with his teeth. I don't know. You've got to find something that says, yeah, I can connect to this. And I think if you're an actor with a good imagination, you can come up with something that will infuse you, you know, that will make you connect with that person in an appropriate way that in some way serves the script.
Great. Just a very short round, and then we have the break. Carmelita, do you have anything to say about in relationship to the question?
I could, just quickly.
Yeah, quickly about the question.
Just the challenge is if we have an approach where we're always asking who should I be every time we enter the performative space in a research process, we can fail. And that failure is partly what we invite in an approach that's experimental and questioning all the time. So we have to be really brave, and you don't always have the energy to be brave. Sometimes you just want a really reliable formula of representation. So we don't have that. And so if you don't have the energy, you can have a really bad week. And that's the challenge. But I think the payoff is actually that we begin to investigate the purpose of failure in the theater and where failure becomes interesting in creating cultural knowledge.
Yes, there's always problems with things, but the way that we work with the Michael Chekhov technique, it's almost entirely positive. We speak only in positive terms about things, and this has its effect of making the actor become a bigger artist, I think.
What was this a reaction of Michael Chekhov himself to the work with Stanislavsky, or why do you talk always in positive terms?
Well, when we were taught as teachers, we were told that Michael Chekhov never said no to the actors he worked with, which I've tried to do, which is really, really difficult. Almost impossible. I mean, I guess he could do it, but the consequence of that was that we were taught to teach in a most positive way, which was, you know, he said that the actor has to say, I am. And the actor's sense of I am is a very small thing because of life. And as a consequence, he brings this very small I am into a character like King Lear, which is a huge thing, and then ends up making Lear even smaller than himself. So we are working all the time to have this increased sense of I am. So this is, I don't see as a problem. I think it's a great thing because we're working to develop the instrument and understand what the instrument is. And this is always in development and always in a positive way.
You want to add something? And then Harald and Mika. Yeah.
About the question about particularization. You know, once you get it, if it has any meaning to you, you don't during performance have to remind yourself of it. You know what I mean? If I say I'm concerned about my relationship to a person, a young girl, and I say to myself, well, she's just like my little 6-year-old niece, you know. Well, I know what that is. I know that reality, you see. So I know exactly how to treat her because she's just like my niece. She isn't actually my niece. She's like her. And I understand the behavior of responding to that person. So we try to avoid at all costs the actor having to step out of the performance, living through the reality of the performance in order to remind himself of something in his homework. Sometimes you can't help it, you gotta do it, and who's perfect, you know. The other thing about problems, you know, when you're teaching, you're dealing with human beings, and they're very complicated people, and creative personalities are even more complicated and trickier to deal with. And so every day presents challenges because every student is different. You can't handle them all the same, you know. One needs to be really pushed hard, and one needs to be very sympathetically you know, treated, and each one is a different problem. And what makes a really terrific teacher, one thing is, they have a sensibility about that, you know.
Yes, Michel and Harald, if you can answer about the question of Jan, and then we have to take a break. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say shortly that for me, in our method, just very concrete, the problems I see is that if you teach a very strong craft, so techniques, the danger is that the people just hold to the techniques and lose their own creativity. So so how can I teach that this technique gives you a freedom and not like what do you say a frame or whatever, so that you can with this technique you can do everything, and you can make very crazy things so yeah, how to keep this balance, especially if you work with very young students, so they believe you. Sometimes they have too much respect in front of you. So yeah, this is for me and how I think for me it is that I also have to look on other techniques. Just doing this, well, how can I get something that help? Maybe if I teach the technique that, what you say, ergänzen, support. Yeah, just to complete maybe our technique with other exercises that help to keep this freedom and this own creativity.
Okay, Michel, and then.
Also Schauspielerei ist ja kein Zustand.
Also acting is not a set condition,
sondern eine bestimmte Art des Suchens.
But a way of searching.
Und so ist Ausbildung, glaube ich, auch, das ist das Problem von Ausbildung, auch eine bestimmte Form des Suchens.
And also education is a certain form of searching.
Und da muss man sich natürlich immer fragen, was ist das Ziel dieser Suche?
And you of course have to ask what's the aim of that searching.
Und das Ziel dieser Suche ist, einen Schauspieler auszubilden, der in der Lage ist, dieses komplizierte und immer komplizierter werdende Leben zu spiegeln.
That is able to mirror this getting more complicated life.
Und da spielt für die Methode vor allen Dingen eine Rolle, den Schauspieler dabei zu unterstützen, wie kann er in diesem Leben, wo so viel Realität von Simulationen umstellt ist, noch erkennen, worum es wirklich geht.
And you have to, in this method, it's about how you can teach this actor about all the simulation that's happening.
Simulation. Also das Leben ist von so vielen Simulationen umstellt.
The life is surrounded by so much simulation.
And was ist das Wichtige?
And what is the important?
Also das zu erkennen, was will ich erzählen?
To realize what do I actually want to tell?
Was ist in dem Moment, wenn ich einer Figur, einer Rolle, einer Situation, einem Stück begegne?
What is it when I meet, a play, a person, a situation?
Und was kann ich unter den im Moment gegebenen gesellschaftlichen Situationen?
And what can I do under the societal situations?
Erzählen.
What can I tell at this, during this
Und das ist,
nowadays situation?
Das ist eine große Herausforderung auch für Ausbilder,
And that's a very big challenge
für Lehrer,
for teacher.
weil immer wieder eine neue Generation kommt,
Because there's always a new generation coming,
die immer mit neuen Problemen kommen.
which come always with new problems.
Es ist heute schon angesprochen worden,
Today also we talked about
nicht mehr zuhören können,
that can't listen anymore.
nicht mehr beobachten
They
können,
can't observe.
Teilhabeverzerrungen, unsere Gespräche, also der Dialog funktioniert nicht mehr wirklich zwischen den Menschen.
The dialogue doesn't really work anymore between the people.
Ich kann oft nicht mehr, auch im Leben, nicht das ausdrücken, was ich eigentlich ausdrücken will.
Also in life I can't express what I actually want to express.
Es gibt einen dauernden Widerspruch zwischen meinen Gefühlen und meinen Absichten.
It's a opposition between my feelings and what I want to do.
Es gibt einen dauernden Widerspruch zwischen meinem Empfinden, meinen Emotionen und meinem Denken.
Opposition between what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking.
Und das zu erfahren, erlebbar zu machen und vor allen Dingen
And to experience that and to make that come, to experience that.
Für das Publikum
For the audience.
So reich zu kriegen,
To make that a really rich experience.
Dass der Zuschauer nicht besoffen aus dem Theater geht.
The audience member doesn't get out of the auditorium drunk.
Sondern eine Idee davon hat,
But has an idea of
wie er vielleicht ein bisschen anders im Leben mit solchen Fragen wie Beziehungen umgehen kann.
how he can maybe handle this situation a bit differently in his own life.
Okay. Thank you. So the last thing from Hans, very, very brief, and then we really take the break.
Well, I just wonder, why is it so that when you train a dancer, you train modern dance, classical dance, jazz dance, and all these different specializations. Yeah? But when you train an actor, you just train an actor. Why don't you just train a dancer? Why is acting so universal that you can go through this school and we think that you can then sort of answer to whatever approach whoever has to theater? That's just what my concern the latest years.
Great. Okay. There's much more for the next days. Okay. Have a great lunch, which is going to take place in the canteen. Thank you.